With that, I'd like to hand over to another speaker we have. We have Sihol Parulian Aritonang from Riau, Andalan, Pulp and Paper. Sihol, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Nicole. Thanks for having me in this event, this welcoming the new participants of the Ambassador and the Accelerator program. I'm Sihol Aritonang, the president of PT Riau Andalan Pulp and Paper, which is the operating company of Pupl Group in Indonesia. Pupl is one of the largest technologically advanced pulp and paper producer based in Riau, Indonesia. Our products are being marketed to more than 110 countries, and it ranges from tissue paper, printing papers, copy papers. Now, at the center of our operation is actually an integrated industrial forest plantations, like what my background screen is showing, yeah, and a manufacturing facility in Riau province of Indonesia. We employ more than 30,000 people in our operation, and our plantation covers an area of around 450,000 hectares. So we understand that our footprint and our presence will impact the communities around our operations and also will impact the lives of our workers. At the same time, as a business, we also are aware that as a business, we can play a significant role in safeguarding human rights throughout our value chain. I'll talk more about it later on. Now, our journey in human rights started actually in 2006 when we became signatory to the UN Global Compact. Yeah. Although we have incorporated or we have integrated human rights aspects in our policies and procedures and commitment, only in 2022 did we start our human rights due diligence process in a formal way based on the framework provided by UN systems. Okay. The process began in 2022 when we published our first human rights policy. As ambassador, my role included ensuring acceptance, buy-in, and support from all levels of company leadership, the shareholders, senior management, heads of business units, and secondly, championing the follow-up initiatives to implement the human rights policy that we announced back in January 2022. Now, this role also includes overseeing the human rights due diligence process, as well as the human rights impact assessment, yeah, that followed immediately after we launched the human rights policy in 2022. Okay. Now, being aware of the complexity in implementing human rights due diligence and in conducting human rights impact assessment, we realized early on that we need to build internal capacity so that we will be true to our commitment. We will be true to our human rights policy. And you know what? The Accelerator program was right on time. Yeah. And as ambassador at that time, I took the lead in nominating talents. At that time, it was our first batch, 4 talents to be developed as accelerators. We decided at the time, together with senior management team, we decided, okay, the first batch should come from our forestry operations, human capital, and from our stakeholder relations sites. Okay, so they did participate. They took the courses, conducted the deep dive, completed the BHR tools that the program provided, and developed action plans to address the salient human rights and the risks in their respective business units. Okay, so that was the embryo. The accelerators, in turn become champions in their own business units. Okay, now at the same time, you know, as Pupl as a company as a whole, we also are very committed to advancing our human rights policy. the accelerators then became members of April's core human rights team and championed some real work to address human rights issues. For instance, during the assessment that was conducted in the field, we came to know that children of the forestry workers who, for some reasons, obvious reasons, live with their parents near the forest area, they could benefit from improved access to basic health services and basic education. Okay, and then our human rights team, together with the accelerator, put together a draft of children welfare code of practice. This was then presented to senior management. As ambassador, of course, I endorsed that proposal, and finally the management approved the code of practice on children welfare. Based on the children welfare code of practice, a plan of action was then developed to take real action to actually provide better access to better health service and early childhood education for the children of the forestry workers, which is now happening as we speak. Okay, because subsequently senior management approved. So this is an example of how accelerator participants, the accelerators, actually become the core team members of our human rights policy and actually taking part in real actions, develop the plan and taking real actions to address human rights issues and making real impacts. Okay. Now, of course, we are also participating, April is participating in this current batch now. This time around, we have nominated my colleagues from mill operation, from the manufacturing operations, and from the sustainability operations sites. Together with the previous batch of accelerators, we figured that it would make a good combination so that company-wise we will have stronger capability. And again, this is also very timely because since 2023, after 1 year or more, slightly more than 1 year after we announced our human rights policy, we made a commitment to ensure that human rights policy is also embraced by our suppliers, our partners. So not only April will embrace and advance human rights, but also our suppliers of raw materials and also our partners. So, and since last year also our partners have been starting to implement human rights due diligence, especially our long-term wood suppliers. The tools that was provided by from the BHR Accelerator program as adapted to our context by our fellow first batch of accelerators will come in handy. That way we'll be able to disseminate knowledge, provide technical training on human rights due diligence to our partners and raw material suppliers. So my message to colleagues, friends who are joining the current accelerator program, it's a great opportunity. You bring back to your company, you will start making real impacts. Your knowledge and skills, willingness to collaborate with cross units within your respective companies will bear fruit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sihol. Really illustrative examples of how you've used this program to make real impact. So it's really wonderful to hear. I also love that you mentioned the participants, you called them accelerators themselves, right? Because they are now championing business and human rights within their business units. And then that you are sending new batches of accelerators of participants from different business units to make sure that the internal capacity is increasing across the organization. So thank you. And I think very inspirational to the ambassadors that are joining this year that helps create the ground for future initiatives after the program finishes. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would love to see if our speakers could maybe answer one of my questions. What perhaps tip would you give the new round of ambassadors to get the most out of this program? And maybe we can start with Sihol. I believe you are on mute, Sihol.
Okay, thank you. As ambassador, my role at least two aspects. Yeah, one is make sure that senior management, senior leadership of the whole organization understands that advancing human rights is part of our business. Okay, that is why, and that's the only way to make sure that any initiatives, any policy formulation that emanates from the advancement of human rights will be part of business, not just, additional work, extra cost that may entail, it's part of business. Okay, and so that's one role of the ambassadors, championing the human rights due diligence within the organizational leadership. Secondly, in our case, because as I mentioned, human rights is not new to us. We have started it in 2006, but we were lacking in the formality. We didn't have enough evidence that we are really embracing human rights. Yeah, and as I mentioned, we only launched our human rights policy in 2022. So from the formal standards point of view, we were new. Yeah. But once the leadership is on board and we are developing internal capacity, yeah, then we can achieve a lot in short time. In 2022, we launched and completed our human rights due diligence exercise, and we also conducted the human rights impact assessment. Okay, and well, it took 1 year, more or less. And then the following year, in 2023, just a few months back, we decided, we took on a bold commitment. Our suppliers, our third-party supplier, our partners, should also take part in advancing human rights. Okay, so yeah, it's I would encourage optimism that this is something that is good for us. This is part of business, and as ambassador, we have a role to play, and we'll be making impact, real impact, especially if we have the accelerators on board.
Thank you, Sihol. Thank you. So making sure that this is not an add-on, right? It's not seen as additional work. Yes. It's seen as core business to your operations. Thank you for that.